Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have always wanted to know what the mystics believe. What do the mystics know? What do they know? How do they operate in life? What do the sages know that I don't know? I want to know something about that. What do these people that seem to have spent their entire lives working toward enlightenment, maybe even becoming a Buddha, what do they know? What do they know that I don't know? I want to know those things. Anybody else feel like they want to know those things? Yeah. Anybody feel like they want to be enlightened? Of course. So, wanting to be enlightened and actually feeling and understanding and knowing enlightenment are sort of two different things. So, what that means, just off the bat, is that maybe it's going to take a little practice for us to find that enlightenment, for us to move into a higher state of awareness, a more potent waking state. So why am I even interested in this stuff? I first of all, I had a mentor who brought me through seminary I graduated from my first seminary in 2011. I started that about 7 years beforehand, and it was a little bit of part-time, and then sort of full-time. And in 2011, this particular mentor of mine he felt sort of completed his process, at least for now, expecting that I would follow up with a lot of the things that he hadn't been able to get to on my own, which I did. A lot of what he wanted me to learn was about the difference between exterior, the physical world, the difference between interior, the inside world, that place where we spend all of our time, or most of our time, ruminating on what it is that we see in the outside world. But he wanted to make sure that I knew the processes that bring about what my life looks like, so that I could help other people to bring about a new and different life, if that's what they wanted, if that's what you want. I mean, if you can answer this question like this, then the question is it okay with you if your life gets better? If you can answer that question with a yes, then you're in the right place. So you've already raised your hand to one thing. Yeah, I really would like to know what the mystics know. I really would like to know what the sages know, because I think it'll make my life better. At least that's kind of what I got from that. So are you okay if your life gets better? You okay with that? All right. Well, I am too. And that's one of the reasons why I step into this kind of study, which is to take a look at how perhaps that happens. The preparatory work for this talk today was done over the last 4 Sundays, where we talked about illusions. Do you guys remember those discussions around illusions? The illusion of separation was the first one. The illusion that you are separate from God, that you are separate from one another, the illusion that you may be separate from life or separate from love. You are immersed in it. It is you. Each and every one of these things that you feel you may be separate from are you, in essence. So we learn a little bit of a lesson, but still we're faced with that illusion on a daily basis. Sometimes we just feel like we're not connected. We get lonely. We feel like we're not connected with life, and we feel that we just don't have enough of what it takes to get through life. We live in fear, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So we dealt with that. We dealt with that illusion of separation, and that's a big one. That's a really big one. That's really why this tradition, this philosophy, this religion, if you will, is called unity, so that we remember that we are not separate. We truly are not separate from anything, even though in a few moments I'm going to be talking about something that we try and separate ourselves from, which is these illusions. The second illusion that we talked about was the illusion of lack. We talked about the idea that we find ourselves sometimes feeling that there's just not enough. I'm afraid now because there's not enough money. I don't have the things that I need. We focus on those things a lot. We focus on the lack a lot. And it's truly an illusion. This is an infinite, bountiful world You know, the Bible spends a lot of time trying to tell us that that's so. You know, the birds handle their lives on their own. You know, they're not too concerned. And if you watch them, it doesn't look like they're doing very much. I mean, they're flying here a little bit, flying there a little bit, maybe pecking a little bit. If you're a hummingbird, you're sticking your long beak into a flower, and that looks like a lot of fun, you know. But they have a lot of downtime, if you've noticed. You know, they do, and they seem to handle that sitting on a nest for 4 weeks pretty easily too. You know, so they don't get fired from their jobs. They don't, you know, none of that stuff. They get to take that sabbatical, but that may be hard work too. Look at the flowers. I mean, they pop up every spring. You don't have to remind them. You don't have to set an alarm for them to get up. You know, there's a lot here. There's an abundance here. The seas are filled with fish. You know, the land is fertile and beautiful, and whatever needs to be grown can be grown. Whatever needs to be harvested can be harvested. We have the capability of sleeping as long as we're not worried about this lack issue or separation issue from the things that we call our good. So it's an illusion. It truly is an illusion. I mean, it's out there for you. I was taught at one point in time in my life the truth about this, and that is that don't worry about, you know, what it is that you don't have. Just put one foot in front of the other. Just do the next indicated thing. You know, if you worry about the fact that you think you don't have enough, you're in trouble right from the get-go. So just put one foot in front of the other and do what's in front of you. Do the next indicated thing. Anybody else ever heard that before? It makes sense, doesn't it? Absolutely. Marty said exactly that. And he's talking about Marty Arnold. We had a beautiful memorial service for Marty Arnold. And she did say things like that. Just step into it. Just do it. You know, that was really her whole philosophy. You don't need a script for life. Just step right into it. And then we talked about the illusion of powerlessness, that we don't have the power to change our circumstances. And the truth is, we absolutely do have the power to change our circumstances, even when it looks like you don't have the power. And the example that I gave was Jesus's example. When he said, and he was referring to powerlessness, if that Roman soldier asks you to carry his pack, carry it. The law says you have to carry it for a mile, but then you get to make the choice, carry it 2. You have made the choice. You are now free to do what it is you so desire. So he looked at freedom in a place where you couldn't seem to find it because somebody was always ordering you to do something, as that act of doing what it is that you call freedom, which is to make a decision on your own, to make a change in the way you feel about it. And the way he expressed it sort of makes people mad. You know, turn the other cheek, carry that pack an additional mile. But the truth is, you're making the decision, and that was the point of the story. So there's always a way to change what it is you're facing. You know, it's how you respond to things rather than what happens to you that really matters. And then finally, we did the illusion of fear. And the illusion of fear is a really interesting one. I mean, we suffer from 1,000 forms of fear, you know, around all sorts of things. And we make those fears up, including the conversations that we make up before we come, you know, to go to a place where we're going to meet somebody. You know, I'll never forget what you said in my head. You know, that kind of fear of how things are going to go. You know, you actually have you ever had that conversation with somebody that hadn't happened yet? Have you ever had it in your head? I mean, maybe not. I do know people, when we have discussions around that voice in your head, who claim not to have one, who claim not to have a voice in their head that's talking to them. Do you guys all have a voice in your head that kind of gives you feedback and tells you certain things? You know, I can call it self-talk, and sometimes it's negative self-talk, sometimes it's positive self-talk. But this head does some really amazing things to us and for us. But those fears normally are not well-founded, are they? I mean, I'm afraid of all kinds of things that never happen. Most of those fears that I have around what's going on in life, they just don't happen. You know, and you know, I think there was a saying by, well, we won't get into that. So those illusions are important to understand. Those illusions are really, really important to understand so that you can do something that you may not have done before. You can figure out how to get through them, how to get past them, how to work your way into a space where you no longer suffer from those illusions. Because just to identify them is one thing, but to, sort of show them out of your life, disassociate yourself from them is another thing. How do you do that? How do you do that? Well, when I was talking about my mentor, he decided that he would give me a lot of information around some new ideas about how to see and measure the things that are going on in your life. And he introduced me to Ken Wilber. And how many of you know who Ken Wilber is and his work? It's a phenomenal work. Some of the things I'm going to be talking about today are in the book Integral Meditation, but it's a book about how you sort of bring together different ideas, bring together different truths that seem to be a paradoxical truth, and figure out how to get through those things. Through meditation, by the way. And he also loves journaling. I saw, Gay, you got a journal today from Luann, who is the master journal maker. It's filled with pieces of paper that are from all sorts of places, isn't it, Luann? Yeah, interesting stuff. And you'll probably find that some of those pieces of paper are more receptive than the others to certain ideas. Isn't that interesting? But journaling is something that I talk about a lot, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, too. So, when I talked about that voice in the head, it's really an interesting illustration of what is happening. That voice in the head is witnessing everything that you think is happening. That silent witness lives within you. Sometimes it's silent, sometimes it's not so silent. But that silent witness seems to live within you. I mean, it can look out here and say, wow, that paint is chipping over there by the door. Something needs to be done about that. I am not that. I'm not that paint. I'm not the door. I am not in that picture. Something is witnessing. Something is witnessing what I'm going through. I can meet a brand new person, and I can shake their hands and enjoy a conversation with them, and something in me is witnessing all of that. What is that that's witnessing all of these things? I mean, this thing that's happening to me even right now is being witnessed by me. I am not this thing that's happening to me right now. I am not this. But I identify with it. I identify with this very moment where I'm meeting each of your eyes, and I'm meeting the material, and I'm meeting the obligation, and I'm meeting even the fear of being here. And so I'm identifying with that, but that's really not me. That is not me. Am I living an illusion? Well, sort of. At least the witness thinks so, because this witness, this silent witness, this awareness here of me doing things is something that I have to pay attention to if I want to sweep those illusions out of my mind. The witness is seeing all of this. And if you are in a meditative state and you're sitting there and things are going through your mind, you're actually able to, if you wish, to witness those thoughts as they move through your mind, to witness the content of what's happening, to witness the scene that's going through your mind. And it's not you. Those things are not happening to you. The witness sees it. It can't be you. Are you the witness? Interesting question, isn't it? Are you that silent, always seeing witness? I think that the mystics, the sages, the seers, the bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, they all know about this witness. They all recognize this witness, but they also recognize that these illusions are going to come in and sometimes take their toll. And this witness has to say, That's not me. Whenever they come in. When fear comes into my life, this witness inside of me must say, not me. I am not that. I, as the silent witness, am not separate. I'm not fearful. I am not powerless. I am not lacking for anything, or whatever the discord might be that you brought into your mind, which happens hundreds of times a day. Some sort of discord comes in, and that's when people say, life is hard, doggone it. And even that, this silent witness, once you recognize it is there, can say, I am not that. I am not that. I am not that which lacks. I am not that which is separate. I am not that which is fearful. I am not that which is powerless. I am not that which is worried. I am not. Isn't this an interesting conversation that you can have inside your head once you recognize that these illusions exist? This witness can say, I am not that, and you know you aren't, because the witness is you. Well, what are you? What are you? I mean, if you are not that, then what are you? Well, in this moment, where you recognize that this witness is with you, that this witness can, if you will, talk you out of falling for the illusion, you are non-dual awareness, meaning you are aware of something that is vast and amazing and almost undefinable. There is something there that you just can't define. I mean, scientists try and tell us, well, you have a triune brain. That's why all of this stuff is happening. You know, I mean, you got this medulla oblongata, and you got your neocortex, and you got all these things that are going on in your brain. And so you're going to have voices, you know, telling you things. Let's take a deeper look and see if we can't really kind of dig into this whole idea of what consciousness is all about, raising your consciousness, raising your level of awareness. If you can become aware of this witness, then you can control some of the things that are popping in and out of your mind. Now, me, do you guys want to get deep? You wanted to get deep? Okay. Now, me, I'm the guy that looks at things and complicates them a little more because I ask questions. And sometimes I ask these questions of myself, but I complicate these things because I stand up here all the time and I say, I am that, because there's only one thing happening. So I am that. There's unity amongst all things. That means I am you, and I am that, and I am this, and I am one with all that is. Have you heard me say that before? Yeah. Do you see any paradox between me saying, I am not that, and I am that? Well, sure. There is a paradox there. It is a difficult paradox to understand when you don't understand the distinction. See, what I am not that does is frees up space in your mind for the truth. So I started writing this morning, and here's what I got. You know I like to journal. This is it here. I say what the mystic knows. So I say in my question here is that there is no conflict between these two things, between the I am that and the I am not that. The disidentification with those things that truly are illusions, the disidentification of those things that I do not want to be identified with and my witness can help me with, are freeing up space. They're giving me an opportunity to know the truth. And that truth is that the oneness includes everything without the bondage that I have when I'm living in the illusions. Now, I know that's a difficult concept, but what I'm saying to you is this. The I am not that is specific. And what it does is clear out all the garbage so I can bring this overarching truth to bear. And that overarching truth is that there really is only one thing. And that one thing is how I have how I live and move and have my being. Direct quote from the Bible. That is a true mystical quote from the Bible. The mystics know there's only one thing, and they know what's not real. They've already done the work to figure out what's an illusion and cast it out in the way that I have, given to you. The mystics know that. They know that this one thing is what they are. And illusion, although it comes and visits, can be swept out. Ken Wilber, he's done a lot of work in this area of consciousness. He's done a ton of work. And while I was reading some of his work, I came across phrases that I just didn't quite understand. I didn't get it, And he would use these phrases all the time. By the way, just a little background on Ken Wilber. He's a guy who has figured out how to map and talk about things that we hadn't been able to talk about before. He is a guy who has essentially a PhD in 42 different disciplines and has written more than any person I have ever known. And when I say known, I'm proud to say that I got to meet him virtually. Gay invited me into a session where Ken Wilber was lecturing, and it was like a bucket list for me because I've always really appreciated the things that he knows and the things that he says and how he expresses them. And one of those expressions was one taste. And I never really quite caught that until I really got deeply into this paradox that I just described. I am that, I am not that. If you clear your mind out of illusions by I am not that, which is called nita cleansing. If you clear your mind out with that, then it frees up space for the non-dual awareness, which is the truth of who you are. You are God in action. It frees up space for that, which is the overarching truth. And that overarching truth is what he calls one taste. There is only one taste. Now, I kind of like that, now that I know a little bit about what that means. I mean, I've known for some time, but I like that because I understand that integral's job, that integral philosophy, the integral ideal, is to make certain that we can hold more than one thing in our hands at the same time. That it's not just this or that. It can be this and that. It can be that and that and that and that and that and that and that. It can also be that this brings you to that. It can also be that this is an expression of that. Are you with me? All right. So integral allows you to hold all of these things in your hand at one time, all of it. So you can hold both of those ideas. One clears it out. One expands you into this space where non-dual awareness exists. When I say non-dual awareness, you may be confused by that. Non-dual means that there's no other power except that one. So there's no God and no devil. There's no God and a bunch of saints that have a lot of power. There's none of that. There just is one thing. One power is what we are. Now, who was that? That's Daniel Nahmod, right? And you sing that so well, by the way. It's beautiful, and it's so true. It's so true. So here is what Myrtle Fillmore did, because she had this experience. She identified with her disease, which was TB. She had tuberculosis as a kid and suffered all through the first 50 years of her life. Maybe late 40 years of her life. She suffered through because she had identified with her disease. One day she had a waking up experience and realized that there was a way that she could disidentify with the disease, and she did that. And she did it through this. I am a child of God, and I do not inherit illness. I don't. She was using that silent witness to say, I am not that. I am not that. And the way she solidified that was to say, I am a child of God, which is to say, I am that wholeness, that perfection, that beauty, that health, that vibrant woman. Because that's what God is. God's vibrance, God's wholeness, God is health, God is all of these superlatives you can bring to bear. That's what God is. And if I'm a child of God, that's me. That's me. I'm disidentifying with tuberculosis. I am disidentifying with this disease. I'm disidentifying with this malady and going to the truth. And the truth is that I'm one with this power, this wholeness, this health, this beauty. That's how she healed. See, she finally had to disidentify with that thing. That silent witness inside of her was saying, no, you're not that. No, you are not that. And then she leaned on the truth. Now, that's a beautiful thing, because the whole rest of her life was about one taste, about understanding that everybody else could do this too. Because you know what she became? She became that person that does exactly what that question asks. What is to be loved? She answered letters from people she didn't even know. She gave them her experience. She gave them her wisdom. She gave them her intellect. She gave them her time. She gave them her life to try and help them. That's being loved. She stepped into that moment where she was no longer bound by any fears. I mean, she didn't answer those letters because she wanted to make money. She obviously didn't have a fear of lack. She didn't have a fear of powerlessness because she was doing something that she knew made a difference. She didn't have a feel of separation. She didn't feel that at all because she healed through connection with the divine, through being the divine. Okay, so now it leads us to this finale here. So when we pray, when we pray, what we must do is to recognize that life isn't happening to us, it's happening through us. Now, the example of that is Myrtle Fillmore. She prayed to a God outside herself again and again and again and again. No answer to this tuberculosis thing until she became the vessel through which this healing was to take place. Are you catching the distinction? She became the vessel through which this healing took place. This was happening through her, not to her. Every time she asked for it to happen to her, not a chance, ain't gonna happen. That's not the way this works. So, you know, I'm very careful about how I pray. I pray, recognizing and knowing that it's happening through me. Now, I know that a healing is happening through me. I'm not asking something out there to heal me. Strike me, hit me right in the forehead with that healing power. Nope, you can wait forever for that. But you know what? You can shift the way that you think. You can push out the illusions. You can accept the truth. And a healing is at your doorstep. I know this is complicated, but we got 4 weeks to talk about how these things start to unfold, and what follows this is how we not only wake up, but we grow up. And there's a methodology to growing up too. We can move forward, not only with an expanded consciousness, but with an expanded level of things that we can do and know and see and engage in. What an exciting time to be alive. And then we're going to take an opportunity to expand this into how a community looks that's awake, how a community looks that's grown up, how a community looks like that has cleaned up all of that stuff that you didn't even know was there, and how a community like this shows up in the world. It's an exciting time. I hope you invite your friends, for crying out loud. This stuff is not the stuff that you read from pamphlets on the street corner. This is the real deal. And it was the stuff that I learned, and I hope you enjoy it as I pass it along to you.